Welcome to my channel, fellow rotorheads. After my experience at Helisim training facility and flying with the H145 model myself for a while, I feel like I need to issue a retraction or correction or to readdress something I said back in my first video where I had a 10 helicopter roundup. In that video, I was not impressed with the H135 from HPG. I felt that it did not fly like a real helicopter. In retrospect, it could be that I may have been too harsh. I feel like I spoke from a position of ignorance. That's not to say that I liked the way it flew. I didn't. But I think that has more to do with what this aircraft actually is, who Airbus is, and what my settings and usage were. In that regard, I'm referring here to Airbus's auto flight control system and their autopilot system. Take a look at a side-by-side comparison of the same H135 model landing at the same location, on the left with the autopilots off, on the right with the autopilots on. Now, as they come in, you can see that the helicopter on the left handles in a way that we are much more familiar with, a much more helicopter-y way in the way it moves and the way it comes in. The one on the right acts kind of like a helicopter imposter. It doesn't move quite right. And believe it or not, that appears to be a testament to the marvel of engineering that is Airbus. Unlike fixed-wing aircraft, helicopters are inherently squirrely. You're fighting the tendency to twist and yaw. Often there's a diagonal component where increased lift comes with changes in pitch or roll, and you need a coordinated left hand, right hand motion to stay in stable flight. Personally, I find that charming, and it keeps me engaged. Airbus has sought to demystify the Hellion forces acting on helicopters. They've created a fly-by-wire system that is, in a sense, an act of technical domestication of the wild beast that is a helicopter. Whereas the MD-500 has been commonly referred to as the Ferrari of helicopters, I would call the Airbus ensemble as the commercial airliner of helicopters. Not because of size, but because of refinement, the smoothness, the reliability, the sophistication. It's a utility vehicle, a workhorse. They're often used in industrial applications or rescue missions, and often in hostile weather, and they need to manage stable hovers for extended periods. Their flight control system is essentially a computer sitting between you and the machine. And the computer is the entity that is actually flying the machine. You're just telling the computer what to do. When the entire system is engaged, it feels less like a helicopter and more like a crane or a moving platform. Some have jokingly called it chair bus. It's essentially flying a helicopter in gamer mode. Now, there has been some criticism in the aviation industry that too much automation has impacted airmanship, has deteriorated the quality of airmanship, that there's an over-reliance on autopilot, and that there have been some actual crashes and fatalities due to that over-reliance. And that is when things are going sideways and that the autopilot is not doing the right thing, that a pilot has the basic airman skills to be able to take over and fly the vehicle competently. To Airbus's credit, they have made their system very robust and redundant. They have Autopilot 1 and backup Autopilot 2 and a third backup to those. To have all three fail is certainly a bad day for any pilot. But from my experience in Helisim Simulator and in Microsoft Simulator, neither the H135 or 145 seem unflyable without the benefit of autopilot. I think that if I was one of their pilots, it would be a concern in the back of my mind if all three autopilots were to fail. Would I be able to handle this vehicle? And the reason is because the vehicle handles very differently without the benefit of autopilot. Now, that's not a concern for me because I like the vehicle in its raw form. I like the squirreliness. Moreover, in my home setup, I can't even really use the benefit of Autopilot because I've taken the spring out of my joystick, and any movement in the joystick is interpreted as Autopilot override. And I don't like the way the model behaves in Autopilot override. Since I'm not an actual pilot that has to contend with travel over long stretches of ocean to reach a distressed ship or some scenario like that where Autopilot would actually come in handy, I like my choppers to be fluid and natural the way they really are. To fly the 135 in an organic, natural way, simply tell the computer to take a back seat by turning off all the autopilots and the auto trim. Airbus would likely tell you it's not intended to be flown like that. Yeah, but that's the way I like it. I found the 145 to be somewhat different. If you turn off all the autopilots and the auto trim, the whole thing, you can see that it flies a little twerky. It's a little fluid, way too greased for my liking. On the right, the autopilots are engaged, but the trim release is on. It flies in a natural, organic way, but more like it's been sedated with the autopilot off. And this is the ideal configuration for me. It flies fluidly, but not very squirrely and out of control. It seems that in the actual H145, if you want to fly like that, you actually have to hold the trim release down the entire time, which is a little silly, although understandable since that vehicle is not intended to be flown that way. But for me, with a springless joystick, in order to fly smooth move like this, I have to fly with trim release. So instead of flying with the button pressed down all the time, I have it set so that I just click it and it latches on. And I'm going to show you how to do that if you'd like to fly like that. There are two places that you need to set in order to create a latching trim release. First, bring up your HYPE Operations Center. Then on the left, click H145. Then in the lower middle, Key Bindings, View and Modify. Now if you scroll down the key bindings, you'll find that they've already set Rotor Trim Reset as your trim release hold. But that's when you're holding it. We want to set it so that it clicks on and stays on. And so you scroll down and create a new key binding. At the bottom, click Add Binding, and then click on the left-hand blue bubble, and it will bring up the dialog box of all the settings that you have that you can set. The ones in red are already set, and you can pick one that you haven't used yet. Remember the item that you pick, because you're going to use that same setting in the flight simulator control. Then click on the right-hand blue bubble, and it will bring up another dialog box, and what you're looking for there is the Trim Release Latch toggle. Click on that when you find it, then click Save, and then go up into your control options on Microsoft Flight Simulator. Type the setting that you picked in the HYPE Operations Center in the left blue box into the Search by Name box so you can find that setting, and then assign a joystick key to it. Click Save and you should be set. That joystick button will now latch on and off trim release so that either you fly very fluidly or you give control over to the autopilot. I hope that has been helpful and informative. I look forward to your questions and comments and enjoy responding to them. And until next time, I leave you with this.
5, 4, 3. I can't do it. Yeah, go. I can't do it.